We are live. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Inside Out Effect podcast, the now self-proclaimed global personal development podcast on a Saturday night at 7:30 in the evening. I'm your host, Stephen Jakes, from the healingthemind.co.uk and also the co-founder of the Inside Out Effect. Now, today we are doing episode 32. And we are re-recording the episode on Sabotage because the last episode got sabotaged. And so this is the real hidden enemy.
It's ironic.
It is ironic.
Yeah.
Right. This is the real hidden enemy, which is the cause of all of our issues, stops us from getting help or the right help, and also makes us feel like we don't deserve and much more. And we'll be going into a lot more detail into all the different areas of how sabotage affects us and what causes all of our problems, which, I wasn't actually going to do this podcast today because a bit sad. I was going to go to the gym instead.
Oh, were you? That's what sabotage was?
Yeah, I was going to sabotage. Yeah, I was going to do the podcast, but actually, I can't. I need to go to the gym.
Oh, he's making excuses. Excuses.
Yeah,
I see.
Excuses are our sabotage.
Back to Albed again.
Yeah, back to Albed again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, at first, I would like to introduce my co-host. He's back alongside me at long last. After all this time, we're back again together in the studio. And I've got my good friend, obviously my business partner, the creator of the DTO system, co-founded Inside Out Effect with myself, and also the author of the book Decoding Pain, the emotional blueprint to healing chronic pain, and also his recent book, the DTO Handbook. So I'd like
Which will be out shortly, very shortly.
How many times has he said that in the last 2 months?
It's a work in progress. It is coming along, I promise.
Yeah, and so anyway, I've got my good friend, the fresh and the frisky, and the lovely and the gorgeous Jonathan Shaw. Hello, John. You all right?
Hi, Steve. Again.
I'm good,
fresh
mate.
and frisky.
Fresh
I
and
love
frisky.
that.
So it's good to have you back at my side in our familiar setup.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to be there as well.
It's good to be here.
You can do a Lee Evans joke.
Yeah.
But it's good to be here as well. No, it's nice to be back. It's nice to see you in person and hang out with you again. Live in person. We've always been live, just not in person.
Not in person. It's not the same, is it?
What, being in person? No, it is.
No, doing this.
The distance.
It's not the same.
It's not quite the same. It's not quite the same.
It's not like it doesn't work for me.
It doesn't work for you. Well, I can switch it off if you like. It's a bit
you might have to do that, actually.
Might have to switch that off.
Yeah.
So we're back live in person again, and it's good to see you and be back here in your kitchen.
It's lovely. The studio.
In the studio kitchen. The kitchen studio.
Highly exotic
that he has here, and with the beautiful ocean in the background.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not here. But it's yeah. So
how you been, mate?
I've been good. I've been very good. Yes, no. Lots been happening.
Yeah.
Lots of different things been happening. I say the book is still in progress. I keep doing little edits on the book, and that's I think frustrating my writer, even though she says it's not. Bless her, she's doing a really good work. But I just want it to be right before I release it I wanted to help as many people as possible. So I just want it to be perfect. So if you are still waiting for it, it is coming out soon. I've been doing some videos and recording things and bits and pieces and helping lots of people. So not a lot's changed, except I'm back here.
But that's good. Yeah, it's good. So also, have you got anything interesting? Any decent clients? Any good stories to tell? Or are you going to be just generally non-plus?
Non-plus.
Yeah.
When am I ever non-plus? Where's
might be
the
tonight.
non-plus?
Tonight,
might be tonight. Could be
tonight.
Non-plus tonight. No. I've been helping people online mainly, but I have treated the odd physical person here and there on my travels.
I treated the odd person. I did you on Friday.
You did do me. I'm a very odd person. Steve's now helping me out with some of my stuff. It's much easier to get someone to help you than it is just try to do it on yourself when you're dealing with deep-seated issues.
Yeah.
You can do basic stuff on yourself. You can do a lot of things, but deep-seated stuff, we all have some things. And I've got him to help me out with a couple bits and pieces, which was a new thing for me. So that was really good. So he does it really well. He's brilliant. I can highly recommend him to people. And I'm quite awkward to work with. I'm quite difficult to work with. Certainly other therapists have been doing in the past have found that out.
I find you quite easy compared to some of my clients, to be quite honest.
You did say that, but I always think I'm quite difficult. That's obviously a belief system.
Yeah.
But no, I've been doing that and just working with people. I treated a lady with bladder pain. I posted that on my Facebook page, and she had bladder pain for over a decade.
Yeah.
And within 6 weeks, all the bladder pain was gone. And don't get me wrong, she did brilliantly. I mean, she took the DTO system, she started using it herself and clearing her own triggers. So I was dealing with the deep-seated stuff, the past stuff, and she was dealing with her triggers in the week, and she really took it under her skin and started using the technique. And within 6 weeks, all her bladder pain was gone. And then I followed up with her every 2 weeks to make sure nothing else had been re-triggered.
Yeah.
And, she hasn't had the symptoms come back again.
Yeah.
And that's
I think that's a mistake, though, isn't it? When you think you've healed and all of a sudden you get re-triggered in the environment, and then it comes back, and then you think the thing hasn't worked, but actually it's just something else that's re-triggering it.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Sometimes, as good as we are, you can have a trigger that is really subtle. Some of her triggers were subtle. And one of her triggers was a shower. Another one of her triggers was going shopping. Another one of her triggers was not being able to get a car parking space at the gym. These are all very subtle triggers, and a lot of triggers are subtle. And one of her sabotage is what we're going to talk about today. It leads on quite nicely, because when I was talking to her originally, when we had a consult over the phone, I said to her, with a chronic condition like this, you can have some sabotage running. She said, "Oh, that's really interesting," because anytime she's feeling good, like she had no symptom for a day, she would then say to a friend, or a friend would go, "How are you?" And you go, "Well, actually, I'm feeling good today." And then literally in a few hours, she'd bring it back again. Yeah. And she actually recognised this. Now, most people don't recognise this.
That's happened to me all the time.
Yeah, and it does happen to a lot of people. And if you're aware of it, that's great. But even if you're aware of it, you're still stuck with it.
Yeah.
And so she became aware of it when I told her about sabotage. And she actually realised, oh, my God, that's what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that she wasn't really experiencing symptoms. It means her unconscious was sabotaging her and making her feel like she didn't deserve to be healthy and well. And that's kind of what we're going to get onto today. And she was really experiencing the pain, and nobody really knew it was wrong. She was diagnosed with multiple different things over the 10 years. Nobody really understood. But after a few weeks, bladder pain all gone. That testimony is on my Facebook page. You can go to my personal page, Jonathan Shaw, or you can go to the DTO system and you can read the testimonial. But no, she's very happy that it's all gone. She's got her life back.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't go too far. She couldn't do things without pain or urgency to pee or things and she tried lots of things, but no, it's really worked for us.
So that's really good stuff, mate. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah. And I treated a guy with depression recently as well, and within a few weeks, he's had depression for about 5 years, and literally within 4 sessions, his depression's all gone, and he's fine, and he's back to feeling good again, and it's brought him close to his partner. So I've had some really good. But the bladder pain was the
that's a really great.
Bladder pain's not something I treat on a regular basis. But I have treated it before, but it was just a really good thing for this woman to finally get her life back.
It goes back to just the cause and effect element again, isn't it? Yeah. It's just a cause and effect.
Just look at the cause and effect. Everything has a cause and effect, and that's what people don't realise. Everything. I wrote this in my book. If I remember one day, I was going to make a call in my mum and dad's old home.
Yeah.
And the phone wasn't working, and so I'm thinking, well, what's causing this? And I looked down and found the wire was chewed.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, the wire's chewed, but that's not actually the cause. What chewed the wire? So the wire being chewed was a symptom. That's why the phone wasn't working. But what caused the wire to be chewed? And it was actually my rabbit. So my rabbit, if you know, I used to be a magician. I used to let my rabbit run around the house, and he would get under the office desk in my dad's little workstation, which was literally next to the kitchen, and he would just chew the wires. So once I found that out, obviously we stopped him doing that. We worked around it, and that was the cause.
Did you make him disappear?
No, I didn't make him disappear. No, I should have done. I should have gone poof. And
well, he was that way inclined as well. Was he?
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that. For those of you Seinfeld fans, you'll get that. No, that was the cause, and I wrote that in my book to kind of explain cause and effect. There was always a cause to an effect, but traditional medicine, they would look at the wire and go, well, that's what's causing it. They go, well, there's a glitch there. That's the problem. So they look in your anatomy or in your chemistry or in your biology, and they go, well, it's been chewed. That's what's wrong.
Yeah. Let's fix that.
But you can't fix that because you don't know what chewed it in the first place. Yeah. If you don't find out what chewed it in the first place, you can't fix it. Yeah. Because you could put another wire there and it'll get chewed again.
Yeah.
And because you're not fixing the root cause. So you could change the wire constantly. You could change the phone. You could move home. But if I took my rabbit with me, the same thing would happen again.
Yeah.
So you have to fix the root cause. And that as soon as I stop that, then the rabbit stopped
This
doing
is what going back to viruses are not a cause.
No, it's not a cause. It's a symptom.
It's a symptom.
Whatever's happening in your body, whatever is going on in your body, whatever you've been diagnosed with, it's there to describe the pathology of what's happening in the body. So whatever symptom you have, whether it's a muscle tear, whether it's a kidney infection, whether it's a sore throat, infection, whether it's your blood not flowing properly, whatever it is, whatever you've been labelled, if you've got arthritis, if you've got polycystic ovaries, if you've got urinary problems, whatever the diagnosis is, that is just a name that describes the symptom, the pathology of what's happening in the body. So when they say that to somebody else, another doctor, the doctor knows what you're talking about. It is not, I repeat, it is not a cause of the problem. And you can prove that really easily, because if you get a medical dictionary, in 99% of cases, under every single disease, it says cause unknown. That shows you that it's not a cause. It's right there in the medical dictionary. It's just a label for symptoms, or rather, better still, what's actually happening in the body. Correct. So when they say it's a tendon pull, well, they're looking at the tendon going, well, the tendon's been pulled. Fair enough. But what caused the tendon to be pulled? That's the important bit. What was the cause? Once you find the cause, you can address that and solve the problem.
Yeah. And really in a lot of cases, it's mental, emotional that causes a biological response.
Yes, well, the biological response is caused by the mental is caused by the biological response. I don't like the word mental. That's not what I mean. But the illness, whether it's mental or physical, it's a biological response in the body. But even so, something has triggered it. Something has started it. Yeah. The response didn't happen on its own. And people say, oh, what about the chemical reaction? And I'm like, well, what caused the chemical reaction? The chemical reaction, yes, that happened in the body, and that's what the doctor sees. Yeah. So if you have depression, the doctor
there's chemical imbalance.
There's a chemical imbalance.
Yeah,
but what caused the chemical imbalance? Yeah. What triggered the chemical imbalance off? Yeah. The problem today is we think our bodies are stupid. We are taught that our bodies are broke, they break, they damaged, and we think they're not sensible. They're not in control for some reason. That's not how our bodies work. That is not how our bodies function. Our bodies are super intelligent, super smart, and it knows what it's doing, but it's not always logical. And if you understand it's not logical, that it's biological, and you understand that, then you can change the response. You can switch off the fight and flight, and the illness goes away. It's not just for mental illnesses or emotional problems. It's for all physical health problems. And that's how I did the lady with a bladder. The bladder problem, that they looked at her bladder and went, well, this is what's happening. You're getting pain. We don't know why. But from a meta point of view, which is the model I follow, it's a not being able to mark your territory. Yeah. So she couldn't mark her territory. So she's getting this urgency to pee and this pain when she was trying to mark her territory. But unfortunately, it's spilled into lots of her territories. It's spilled into the shower because that triggered the past memory of when she couldn't mark her territory. So it's nothing to do with the actual shower. The shower was triggering the past negative memory when she couldn't mark her boundaries with the person that was the problem. And then it spilled over into her life of not being able to make decisions. So she was worried when she goes home that if she got the wrong decision, something would happen in her territory because of her past. So all these were territory issues where she felt she couldn't mark her boundaries. And once we switched those off and we switched the core memories off, gradually over the weeks, the pain got less and less and less. Yeah. And then we switched the sabotage off, which was her lack of deserving, which we're going to get to in a moment, because that was the most important thing to switch off first. Once we switched that off, then the pain just stopped and she was able to tell people. And her family can't believe the change in her. Her family can't believe how she's changed so quickly. And they're thrilled for her. Obviously, they're thrilled for her, but they can't. She tells me they just can't believe the difference, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's great, mate. And so anything else you want to share? I mean, apart from that, what you're just doing,
Sherry, Ben, yeah, that's an important distinction. Thank you, Sherry. Yes, I appreciate that. So Sherry just said that's an important distinction. Yes, that is. Thank you very much, Sherry.
Hello, Sherry.
So Sherry is also a mental health practitioner, coach, and she works with my mentor Richard Fluke, who taught me mental health. Okay. At the time. She's an amazing lady, and she helps loads of people all the time with different problems. I can't remember what you specialise in, Sherry. You might need to just remind the viewers so we can let them know what you specialise in. But no, I met Sherry when I was learning mental health, which is the analysis of the biological response. which is every organ in the body responds to a different biological response.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm able to solve things like bladder pain, or how we absolve anxiety and depression, because we look for the biological response, not the mental and emotional.
Yeah.
But today we're going to talk about something slightly different, which is sabotage, which is not part of the meta. It's something that now I'm not saying I wasn't taught about the sabotage. Well, I wasn't taught sabotage. I was taught about the two emotions that cause sabotage, but I wasn't taught it in this way. And so I learned over a few years of doing DTO that one of the biggest conflicts I was dealing with in people was a lack of not deserving, not feeling good enough.
Yeah.
And I never knew where that came from. And I would always look for memories where we felt we didn't deserve. Like I would look for why we felt we didn't deserve, but it didn't really work. Not certainly me. It wasn't very thorough. And I suddenly learned through asking questions. I learned where that actually comes from, and it actually comes from our sabotage and these two responses.
Yeah.
So if you are watching this, we're going to cover sabotage, why you might be sabotaging your health and wellness, why you might be sabotaging your success in your work, why you might be sabotaging making more money, why you might be sabotaging your relationships.
Yeah.
Sabotage happens in all walks of life, and it doesn't happen to be big things. It can be little things as well, just like connecting with your children, or having friends, or things like that.
It also extends out to when you want to take action. So if you want to start up a business, or if you want to go to the gym, or even if you want to ask someone out on a date, or a whole load of reasons, when we can't have or don't we have an inaction against the action we want to take, underneath that, 99 times out of 100 times it'll be sabotage.
It's sabotage. Yeah. And although these emotions are talked about, when I learnt therapy, when I was doing all the EFT and theta healing, matrix reimprinting and all that, obviously these two emotions were covered, but they weren't covered as our sabotage. They weren't covered as important emotions or responses. They were just emotions that were there. Yeah. They weren't pointed out to me. These are very important. And we are saying to you today, these are very important.
Yeah.
These are the things that when I was stuck, when I learned DTO, when I stumbled upon DTO, originally I only had the 4 steps for changing things. But when I started looking deeper at my stuff and working out why I kept thinking negatively or causing bad things to happen in my unconscious, I suddenly realized this was the reason. And when I realized that and started to clear that, then my world changed. Just doing that alone changed my world. Just clearing these two things, or finding memories where I had these things running, that changed my world. And that's why I'm where I am today and feeling better, and met you and doing the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have done this 2 years ago because I had so much sabotage running. Yeah. And it's only since we've been clearing all the stuff and I'm just getting better and better as time goes on, that I don't really have any sabotage against it, really, to be quite honest. Which is interesting because I've had quite a busy day today myself. And this afternoon I had a young lady come over to me, and she's having trouble with an ex-partner. And what's happening is that ex-partner really needs to get out of the scene, but it's her sabotage that's stopping that, and it's now affecting her other relationship. So the ex is now still there. Yeah. But her sabotage is now sabotaging this relationship because of the sabotage of this relationship. So there's two going on. She's trying to sabotage this, and she's sabotaging her relationship. So, and I identified that today with her this afternoon. And once I've got rid of that, and now she's fine, she's great, and it resolved a big problem for her. And she's having a lot of depression because there was a lot of fear in the territory. Yeah. Because when the ex would turn up and with the new fellow and all the rest of it, so there was a lot of fear going on, and so that was really good today for me. But that again just encompasses the sabotage and how it's been affecting her for a while. Yeah, and it only took me about 45 minutes to find it and get rid of it. So that's good. So I've seen a lot of that. I mean, I've had loads of new people in the last 2 weeks reaching out to me, and because obviously I think what's going on in the world right now, everybody's sort of suffering to a certain degree. That would be because of depression and anxiety, mainly the two. Yeah. And that's because they're feeling attacked and powerless because they can't do anything because of what's happening in their environment or their business. And obviously the depression element because there's a loss conflict, the loss of freedom, the loss of money, the loss of all of these different areas. And so I think right now it's just really heightened up everyone's mental and emotional problems. And so I had a lot of people. I mean, my phone hasn't stopped ringing. I mean, I'm completely booked up this week. completely.
Yeah.
And again, underneath most of that is generally there's a lot of sabotage involved in that as well.
Yeah, under all any emotional response, fear, anger, worry, injustice, betrayal, hurt, grief, under all of those are the two responses that cause sabotage that we're gonna cover. And if you've heard them before, I'm not saying them deliberately because we're going to reveal them in a minute, but they are under every single response that I've ever heard from someone. These two responses exist and cause all the problems. And if you find that and switch these off, the problem will go away. So if, for instance, you are trying to clear something at the moment, let's say you're a therapist out there, you're listening, you're watching, and you're trying to clear something, but it's not clearing, this will be why it's not clearing. That's what it was for me. I was trying to clear things and it wasn't clearing because this existed in my life. This is what made me feel I didn't deserve or wasn't good enough or shouldn't have what I want in life.
Yeah.
And this is why Steve couldn't clear anything, because I knew Steve's issues was all of the sabotage that was stopping him. So once we started removing that, life just suddenly gets better naturally.
Yeah.
And your health gets so much better naturally as well, just sort of effortlessly. You don't have to do it. Depending on how much sabotage, I mean, Steve had a load of sabotage running.
Yeah, I did.
And I had a fair amount, nowhere near what Steve had been through, obviously. I say obviously, that's not obvious. But if you've listened to us before, you understand. It's not obvious that you've had more than me, is it?
It's
not like it's tattooed on your forehead. Yeah. I'm fucked. That's not the way that works.
I was thinking the lady that I saw this afternoon, right?
Yeah.
I said to her, it's quite, she goes, well, how do you know all this stuff? I said, I can generally find what it is. I said, because so far in 2 years, not one person has sat down there and said, this is happening in my life right now. And I've like, that's not happened to me. Yeah. Literally hundreds of people, they sit down, whatever they tell me is going on, go, yeah, I've had that. I've experienced that. Yeah, I've been that. I've had that. It's like I've had everything.
Yeah.
Everyone. It's not one person yet that's come down and said, this is the problem that I've got. And I'm like, I don't know where I've not experienced that. Everything. I've had everything that everyone's had, I've experienced in my life, which is a good thing because it gives me the tool in the armory to be able to know where they're at and be a bit compassionate with it and get the problem. But every single person that comes and sits down in my chair and whatever problem they've done, it's happened to me or I've done it myself. So
yeah, Steve's been through a lot in his life.
Yeah,
and I haven't been through that much. But I still have blocks and issues, and what is often struggle for some people is there are normally two types of people. There's a person who's been through so much, you can understand why they're messed up. And then there's someone like me who really has had a good upbringing, a good childhood, has had lots of nice things happen, but we're still not right. We're still not happy. And those sort of people certainly can feel guilty about that and feel ashamed about that because
they haven't had as much. They haven't had as much trouble, and they shouldn't feel like that.
And they shouldn't feel like that. Whereas, at least for someone with Steve, you can see why they're messed up because of the trauma they've been through. So if you are watching this and you're like, "Well, I haven't been through trauma. I don't know. There's not a lot happened to me." That's not how it works. It's not. It doesn't. You don't have to have been through explosions and fireworks and lots of trauma and the experiences that are quite sometimes difficult in life.
The thing is, and I want to make this clear to everybody, like, yeah, I've had loads of stuff. Like, I've had a lifetime of it, right? Now, that stopped when I started doing this because it changes everything. But I want people to sort of understand that regardless of the event, the response is the same.
Yes.
So the emotional response to an event, whether it be, let's say, for example, you drop a pint of milk and it smashes and you're around somebody else's house, right? And then you feel guilty about that, right? That guilt response is no different to the guilt response I might have had because of something that happened to me in a really traumatic situation.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the intensity of the event is irrelevant because the response is just guilt. So it doesn't matter if you feel guilty because you robbed a bank and stole £1 million and got caught, or whether you dropped a pint of milk. Now, to some people, they might not understand that, but ultimately, the response is just a guilt response. Doesn't matter on the intensity of that, it's just a guilt response. And so whether you've had a small event or a large event, the impact of that sabotage will still have the same effect.
Yeah.
The same, whether it's a shame or a guilt or whatever it is, it's exactly the same. And that's what people might misinterpret when they think, oh, well, I haven't gone through, he has, and so therefore I shouldn't feel this way. Well, that's not true because guilt is guilt, whether it's you drop a pint of milk or you rob a bank. The guilt's exactly the same, and all you need to do is go and find that guilt, remove the guilt, and then it goes. So there is a bit of a misconception around that.
And that's the same for all emotions. When I've worked with people, and if I hadn't been through what someone been through, I will be honest, say, well, I've never been through that, but I understand the feelings you're going through about it, because we've all experienced the same feelings. We've all experienced anger, frustration, guilt, shame, injustice, betrayal, hurt, unless you've been living in a box. And then you'll be experiencing a lone response. But
or you're so thick-skinned, it just goes on and you don't care.
Yeah,
I know a few people like that.
Which is totally possible, but most of us experience all those emotions because that's being human. But what triggered those emotions is largely irrelevant. It's just how you're feeling that you need to change and switch off. I'm not putting down what everyone's been through. I'm not putting down what everyone's had happen to them. But after it's happened, you should then not be feeling those responses. But it's only how you're feeling that's the problem. And once you can change how you're feeling, then you can move on from it and let it go. And then you feel so much better. Yeah. But at the bottom of it are these two responses. Now, I'm hoping you all know what these two responses are, because you've mentioned them in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So if anyone's watching and listening right now, type in what you think these two emotions are before we actually say it. Just message us and go, state the two emotions you think are what cause sabotage. So if you're watching this and you've seen this before, you should know. I know you weren't expecting a test because we didn't put a test out there. But we will be grading you and marking you later on. And if you fail, then we're going to sack you and get rid of you. Yeah. No. But if any of you guys out there know what the two responses are that cause sabotage, then post that now and we'll reveal them in a minute. But no, Steve's right. The emotional response is the same under any scenario. It may be slightly more intense under different scenarios. Yeah. And you may say, oh, well, my situation's worse. But that's not really, when it comes to feelings and thoughts, that's not how it really works.
I just want to say, I think that was the worst thing you could have done, mate. We've just had 78 people drop off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they wasn't impressed.
Oh, God, because I said I was going to sack them, and I mentioned the test.
Yourself, 78 people drop off because they're too ashamed that they don't know what the sabotage is, which is sabotage in itself.
They just sabotage themselves, and they're all dropping off like that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those of you who don't know, it's guilt and shame. So the two responses are guilt and shame. And what I find is that if you dig under, or what me and Steve finds, and you dig under the anger, the fear, the injustice, the betrayal, the hurt, underneath that there will be a hidden guilt and shame. So it's not about necessarily things you've done that you feel guilty about, because that's quite obvious. So if you nicked something when you was younger, or you did something that you know was quote unquote wrong when you was younger that your mum and dad didn't like, and you went against it, you know you're guilty about that. But often guilt and shame is hidden under anger, resentment, and normal everyday responses. And we don't know that we're feeling guilt and shame about that thing that's happened, or about what the person did or said. Because sometimes it's not what we've done that's making us feel guilty and ashamed. It's our beliefs about what we're thinking or feeling, or what we should think and feel. And so, sometimes guilt and shame is in the guise of, well, I should know better than this. I shouldn't be feeling like this. So you might feel guilty about that. You might feel ashamed that you allowed something to happen.
Yeah. Also, I think that's what keeps us stuck in situations as well from moving on.
Yeah.
For a job, for example, or a relationship. It's not working, but your guilt and shame keeps you stuck.
Yeah, you feel guilty about hurting the other person. You feel ashamed about wanting to move on, or maybe hurting your children. You can feel guilt and shame. You might have a religious belief that says that it's wrong to do that, and so you'll feel guilt and shame over that. I treated a guy a couple of years ago now, lovely bloke, and he was stuck in a relationship that had been over for a long time. I mean, in his own words, it had been over. They were still living together, but it had been over. And he wanted to move on, but he was worried about his kids. And there was lots of guilt and shame around his kids, but he just wasn't happy. He was absolutely miserable. And he felt so bad about telling his partner. But what we did is we switched off the guilt and shame around telling his partner. And then all of a sudden, once we switched all that off, it just sort of came up. He didn't have to broach it. He didn't have to. It just sort of came up in the conversation. And when they finally talk and communicate with each other, she felt exactly the same way. Which he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that it came up really easily. He didn't have to force it. but it's because we switched off his guilt and shame around it. So then that created a different energy, which brought up an opportunity that previously wasn't there, and it just flowed naturally. And actually, she felt the same way as well.
Yeah.
So then everything worked out in the right way, and we switched off some guilt and shame around his kids after that.
Yeah.
But his kids were absolutely fine because he wasn't bailing on his kids.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and I know this from previous experience from people I work with, is that the kids know.
Yes,
the kids know.
Yeah.
You know, you might stay there because you think you're doing the wrong thing, but you got to remember they're far more in tune with their subconscious than they are. And the thing is they know and they understand and they pick up the vibrations and they feel it and they're aware of what's going on. And it actually has a negative impact on them, even though you think you're having a positive impact on them. Yeah. And it causes damage later on in life because subconsciously their perception of how mum and dad is going to model their beliefs and behaviors in relationships.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the problem with it. And that's why we have to be that's why we have to be careful, because if you're brought up in a very unloving, very critical relationship, then their model of a relationship is that's how you are. That's what relationships are. That becomes the norm. So we have to be very careful when we're in them situations that our guilt and shame don't keep us stuck there for our own personal well-being and health.
Yeah.
I mean, also, but for our children's benefit and well-being and health, for them to know what healthy relationships and how to be in a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the key things, when I interviewed Bobby, Bobby is one of our clients and she's put some stuff on Facebook. She's an amazing girl. Bobby, we love you. You're an awesome individual. But I interviewed her in my garden and she had a brain tumor, which she was able to heal herself.
Yeah.
Now, the defining factor in that, which caused that, was a toxic relationship. That was the one thing that she, we say, don't we make things okay that aren't okay? But that, amongst other things, but it was that toxic relationship that made her react and respond internally to cause a conflict which created that tumor. Yeah. Once she got rid of that relationship and she started changing her diet and her health and all the rest of it, she healed from it. But it's just going to show you that when you stay in a toxic relationship for too long, I'm not saying it's going to happen for everybody. Trust me, it doesn't. But in her case, that was the catalyst of her actually getting a brain tumor in her pineal gland. It was one of the main things. And she's just so amazing, Bobby. And, to be able to heal from that, and she did everything, and she managed to heal it and it's not come back. But the point I'm making is that that's what we have to be very, very careful of. And it'll be our sabotage that keeps us stuck in those situations.
Yeah. And just to point out that not everyone who's in a toxic relationship is going to have that symptom. It is the biological response in the body is based on your perception of what's happening. Correct. If you perceive the relationship differently, you're going to have something different. But it's a very important thing that Steve points out, because your environment is also very important. If you're in a toxic environment, if you're in a situation that is toxic, you have to remove yourself from the situation. You can do all the clearing in the world, but if you keep putting yourself back into the toxic environment, you're going to sabotage yourself, either with some kind of illness or disease, or just not being successful, being unhappy, being miserable.
I've got that with a client right now who we've been working on it for months around an issue with a parent. And the problem is that I clear most of it, and then she'll go back into the environment. She lives with her mum, and then it all gets re-triggered, and she comes back. And we're going round and round and round in circles.
Yeah.
And so we, I have pointed that out that can't really go any further until you remove yourself from the environment.
That's right. You have to remove yourself. Sometimes you can clear it and the environment clears up.
Yeah.
But if the environment or the people in your environment is causing a problem, that's who they've been for many, many years. And that's just the way they are being right now. I don't believe anyone is actually like that generally. But if that's how they're being toxic, they're unhealthy for you. You have to move away from that person or those people to be able to move forwards. I remember one of my friends, she was telling me that she used to dabble in drugs when she was younger, and she couldn't stop doing it while she's around those people. She had to remove herself from those people before she could stop doing it, because she'd just get re-triggered all the time. She'd go around their house and they'd be smoking whatever they were smoking or doing whatever they're doing, and it would just re-trigger back into the process.
Yeah, we become like the 5 people we hang around with the most.
Yes, exactly. So be careful who you hang out with.
Absolutely.
So
you're screwed then, mate.
I am. I know. Tell me about
buggered,
it.
Mate.
Yeah, I'm hanging around with Andy Cap. That's not. It's not good. No, for those of you who don't know who Andy Cap is, it's a British sitcom. Go and look it up on YouTube. I love him really. I'm just joking. Sometimes I love him too much. Oh no, I'm joking. No, your environment's very, very important. And I remember when I met you, I mean, you were not the cheeky chappy you are now.
No.
He was inside, but he's not.
When I first met him, mate.
He was broken. I wouldn't have chosen to hang out with Steve when he was first broken because he was not the cheeky, chappy, fun person that I know him to be, which is why we hang out so much and why he's now my business partner. So that wouldn't have been a healthy environment for me. But now hanging out with him is great because he's fun, he's himself, and he's a good laugh. And he's also very smart, knowledgeable, and he's fantastic at what he does. So,
do you want a piece of chocolate?
I do, thanks. How did he know? I was edging for that. I wasn't going to sabotage.
Doesn't take much to get a few compliments out of you, mate, but I appreciate it.
So no, I mean it.
No, thanks.
Sometimes when I pay a compliment, I've been told I sound patronising. I don't mean to sound patronising.
I don't want people to think that I paid you to say that, so I wanted to do it live.
Okay, right, yeah.
Bought that with a piece of chocolate.
He just bought me a chocolate to say that, so I'm just nibbling on chocolate. Shut up now. But your environment's very important. I've treated a few people where they wouldn't change their environment, and sometimes if you don't change the environment, you can't solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that is sometimes the trickiest part. I mean, I had one guy once, and he was suffering all sorts of problems, and we reduced his symptoms. Anxiety was one of them. And we reduced his symptoms, but the problem was his work. Now, he was actually the boss. He owned the company. He did not need to be there. He could employ people, which he did have, and trust the staff to do it. But he would not, for whatever reason, he would not do what I was asking him to do and leave and back away from the company. He owned it. He had no reason to be there. But he felt an obligation to his parents, I think, and he wouldn't let me switch that off. He wouldn't let me change it. He felt a strong obligation, and that just kept him stuck. And it's partly due to a relationship he was in as well. And he just sort of stayed stuck. And I don't know how he stayed. I hope he's fixed it. I hope he's resolved it. Because I don't like to think of anyone unwell. But if you don't resolve the environmental situation, you can have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So so let's sort of move on to some more specific points of where sabotage actually works. So we've talked about relationships. That's one of the key things I think why sabotage is a big player for me and for everybody. But also sabotage can happen in, for example, let's say when it comes to your personal health or fitness. For example, going to the gym, you might think, we all say, right, that's it. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to change my life and I'm going to go down there and work out. Be like me. And it's the thing, you see, back in the day, I would go and do the gym for a week and then I'd stop.
Yes.
And sabotage would kick in. So now I'm going consistently 4 times a week because the sabotage isn't there.
That's right.
So if there's something that you want to do and you maybe start doing it and then you stop, or you think about that's what I want to do. So you're sitting on your sofa and you go, do you know what? Tomorrow night, I'm going to go and join the gym and I'm going to really do it. And then it comes around at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening and you're like, oh, actually, I need to iron the thing. And, I've got to go. Damn, I've got to go and drop the kids off. I need to go and see my sister. My friends just phoned and they want me to help move house. All of that is sabotage.
Yes. Yeah.
All of that is sabotage. So if you're finding yourself not doing the things that you want, sabotage is kicking in. And that'll be a lack of self-worth, which is generally a guilt and shame about yourself or a case of not deserving.
Well, if you're making excuses for why you can't do something, or even worse, you keep finding things are getting in your way, which are external things. So you go to do something, but something happens, your sister calls you up and wants your help. The kids are screaming. Your partner does this and this.
Yeah.
If things are getting in your way, you're actually creating that. You're actually generating that in your environment. If it's happening all the time consistently, happens a one-off, no. But if it's happening more than 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5, it keeps happening. You are then creating that because of your guilt and shame, your sabotage.
That's law of attraction kicking in.
Yeah, and then your law of attraction kicks in, so you attract the thing to stop you. But it often will come down to, if you want to improve your life, if you're surrounded by people who don't improve their lives, you could feel guilty about doing better than the people around you. You could feel shame about doing something, and you might be worried about what they're going to think. If you suddenly make more money and your friend, one of my mates used to rib me all the time when I was an entertainer. For those who don't know, I used to be a magician. I'm sure you do know. And when I first started, I worked 7 days a week building that business. But after a while, I backed out because I actually had a nervous breakdown when I was 21, working 7 days a week. And I didn't need to do that. So I backed it down and I worked 4 days a week in the end. And I enjoyed my life. And one of my mates, he used to rib me. I said, been to work. He'd go, work. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a bit of a hobby for you, isn't it? A bit of work. And I took it as a joke. And he was joking. He was teasing. But because he was a lorry driver, travelled all over the place.
Yeah, that's proper work, mate.
He's a great bloke.
Proper work.
He's a great bloke. But he would tease me about that, thinking that what I did wasn't work. And actually, it was very, very hard work. And so that could have had a negative impact on me, because I could have listened to that and gone, oh, well, I should be.
I know you're not good enough, and you should do something else.
I should be making more. I should be making less money, or I should be working more for that money. And if that's happening to you, if you've got someone in your life who is ribbing you on a consistent basis about improving your life or doing well, then you either need to get rid of that person or switch off how it's affecting you, because that will then cause you to sabotage yourself.
You'll take on those beliefs.
You'll take on the belief. That's right. You'll take the belief on and think you're doing something wrong just by being successful. Yeah. And that happens a lot with success.
I tell you, one of the things, sabotaging your happiness is probably right up there, bigger than anything else. Is that people want to be happy, and anything that makes them or takes them towards their happiness, relationship, job, personal development, or whatever, or anything. Once they start going there, they still feel so guilty that they're happy because everyone else isn't, that they then sabotage it and bring themselves back down into a negative state. Or not everyone, but the vast majority will sabotage their happiness because they don't deserve it, or because their environment it means they're different. You know?
It happens all the time. I had a lady, recently, I was clearing her depression. She's had depression for a very long time. And we were clear, something she'd feel better. And next week she was crying all the time again. She was depressed. And
I was working with you, mate.
It was exactly. Yeah, I have that effect on women. They cry consistently, and that's all right. So I say that all the time. But I was working with this lady, and she's still depressed, and I'm like, this is not right. So basically, I just asked her, what's stopping from being happy? I asked her a slightly different question, but ultimately she was sabotaging happiness. Yeah. So it was nothing to do with being depressed. It had nothing to do with what was causing depression. She was actually making herself feel shit and going back to the depressed feeling because she felt guilty about being happy because the people around her weren't happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people in the world
well said. That's exactly
happy.
What I wanted to say. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
So,
said it so
that's why you keep me, because I'm eloquent.
Why I keep you?
I'm eloquent and I'm good with my words.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Words.
I am tired.
Yeah, you're tired. I know.
I'm tired. I've had busy days.
Maybe that cap's heavy. You don't want to take it off. It's down on your head.
No, I've had a meeting this morning, and then I've worked this afternoon, and then blah blah blah. I just feel knackered.
He's tired.
I'm not in my tip tops.
Do you want to go to a little sleep? Want to get a pillow?
I don't know whether it's actually that or if I'm sabotaging this podcast.
You could be sabotaging the podcast. In fact, another 78 people just dropped off while we had that conversation. But no, once I switched off that sabotage about being happy with that lady, she's not been depressed or anxious since. And now we're working on some of the physical issues she's going through. Yeah. But that was actually the root cause of depression. Well, the root cause was the things that happened in the past, but she'd anchored it to sabotaging her happiness. Because she didn't, and also her mum wasn't happy, so that was part of it as well. Even though her mum had passed, she was sabotaging. Going, well, I shouldn't be happy. Mum wasn't happy, and that can be a big issue as well. Yeah, another thing as well is that just jump in there. You talk about anxiety and the sabotage. Is that some people will have some sort of anxious sabotage. So let's say we're all going out for a meal tonight. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, just an hour or two before, it's like all of a sudden you'll start feeling anxious about it or whatever, and that's your sabotage kicking in. Or you'll come up with, I can't. I've got the kids have got school in the morning. I've heard so many people do that over the years. I know. About you go, well, every time you'll ask, who you can go and ask a specific person. They go, yeah, definitely, I'm up for that. Yeah, sounds great, wicked, yeah, brilliant. Yeah. And then you can guarantee 2 days before, you won't believe it. Auntie Maureen's just come down from York, and we've got a family do, and you see it all the time. But again, that's your sabotage kicking in, and it's just sad, really, because you're missing out on fun, you're missing out on socialising, you're missing out on meeting new people, having new friends, or whatever. Yeah. And that's generally your sabotage that's kicking in. So if you find yourself not going out to meals or parties or going out for drinks or even just social gatherings, you normally find it will be a sabotage that's generally kicking in. Yeah. And anxieties are tied into that, because I hear a lot of people say, all of a sudden, just before they're meant to come out, anxiety will kick in. Yeah. Now, that sabotage might not be the anxiety, it might be another issue, but that is acting as a sabotage. That's a sabotage. Yeah. And people have, I believe I've spoken about before, people have an upper limit on what they'll accept in their lives. And I learned this from a guy called Gay Hendricks, who's an author, psychologist, I believe, in America. He wrote a great book called The Upper Limit Problem. And basically, everyone has an upper limit of what they'll accept. That goes for emotions as well. So we have a limit of how happy we'll allow ourselves to be. And then once we reach that limit, we'll sabotage it and bring it back down again. So that girl with the bladder problem, she would only allow herself to not have the bladder problem for a day, and then she'd sabotage it.
Yeah.
If you find this lady with the depression, she would allow herself to feel happy for a day and then sabotage it. So if you find that you're doing something, but you're hitting a plateau, you're hitting a ceiling, and you can't push through it.
That could be income, that could be well-being, that could be health, anything.
It could be mental state, it could be anything really. Whatever you're trying to achieve, but you keep hitting a plateau, that's because you have an upper limit problem. So you've reached your upper limit and you're going to bring it back down again.
Yeah.
And it's very common with money. It's very common with happiness. It's very common with
that happened with me on nearly all of the things. What happened with me when I look back now, knowing this, and I look back, especially with the money element and the happiness element and all the stuff, that was definitely for me.
Yeah.
And the thing was, is that when I had that massive crash, I had to rebuild all that again, because my self-worth had crashed to such a level that even when I'd got to just a small percentage of what I was earning, I'd sabotage that.
Yeah.
Because my self-worth had gone so down. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So if you are experiencing stuff like that, then you do really need to do the work, because otherwise you're in a perpetual cycle.
Yeah.
And you're stuck. And you start getting more and more down and depressed and frustrated, because you know what you want, but every time you reach there, you bring yourself back, and then you'll reach yourself and you go, I can't get out of it.
And people think that that's life. All right. So I want to make a very clear distinction.
Yeah.
That's not life. So people just go, oh, just life. Life sucks. Yeah. That always happens to me.
I'm unlucky.
Yeah, I'm unlucky. And people just believe, God hates me, whatever it is. But it's actually not. It's actually your unconscious sabotage. You're not doing it consciously.
Yeah. You're not even aware of it.
You're not aware of it. Yeah. You're not going, I'm going to feel shit today. You're not doing that. It's in the back of your brain. It's a belief or a thought or a memory that's being triggered that says that's making you feel guilt and shame, and then goes, well, I feel guilty and shamed about this, so I don't deserve. I'm not good enough to have or want this because of what I did in the past or what happened in the past that I feel guilt and shame about.
Yeah.
And that is how that works. Your guilt and shame in the back of your mind is making you believe that you're not good enough because you did something wrong, that you made a mistake.
You pointing at me?
Yeah, I'm pointing right at him. He's done it. It's his fault.
My fault.
Come and get him. No, I was pointing here. I was like,
okay.
I
make it sound like I was responsible for everything.
It's him. He's responsible. We'll just switch him off. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
There's a switch at the back of his head.
Yeah. Well, the other thing as well is that
you could have mimed doing that if you'd have really. I mean, that would have been really.
I'm live. I'm not going to do that. Am I?
You should have just gone and just switched off.
Okay.
That would have been really good.
Well, like C3PO.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could have done a quick one.
Yeah. No, so I was going to say something.
I don't know what you're going to say.
No, but the thing is that, when we have all this running, we only really have one life. And when we only have one life. We only have one crack at it. And I hear so many people that go through life and they say they get to 65 or 60 or whatever, 70. Oh, if I had my life, if I had it, I'd do it all again.
Yeah.
And that's because the missed opportunities that they had that they didn't take because their sabotage was probably what's stopping them.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage people to really go for what you want. And if there's something getting in the way from the thing that you really, really want, then you need to obviously John, me, or anybody that deals with this and get rid of the guilt and shame. Because as soon as that goes, as soon as you get rid of that, you will have and achieve what it is you want in your life. Now, then you need to look at the upper limit level as well. So, and a lot of this is all subconscious programming from 0 to 7, and what we take from our environment, from the TV, from our friends and people that we hang around with, and our beliefs generally from our parents as well. So the reason I say that is because don't go through your whole life and get to a point in life where I won't say you've got regrets, but you haven't lived to your full happiness. We get one crack at this life, and if we're not really doing or being the best that we are or having the things we are, then it's a bit of a travesty that you've been given this opportunity to live a life and never really live it to its full benefits or maximum capacity, I suppose, in whatever area of life it is.
Yeah. And a lot of people think that that's fear that's holding them back. They think that they're frightened to do something, or they're told, oh, you're just frightened to do something. A lot of therapists say, oh, it's fear. Well, actually, under that fear is guilt and shame. And it's always guilt and shame is under that fear. So actually, it's not really the fear holding you back. Now, if you can switch the fear off, that's fine. If your fear is gone and you switch it off, that's great. If you feel it's fear causing the problem, like you're frightened to step out your comfort zone, you're frightened to move,
make decisions,
you're frightened to make decisions. Actually, and by trying to get rid of the fear, it's not working. That's because underneath that is a guilt or a shame, or multiple guilts and shames. Yeah. And that's where I certainly got stuck with some of my fears and my worries. They weren't switching off by going to the fear. So when I learned about guilt and shame, I went under the fear to find out what was there, and then the fear. So I don't even bother trying to switch fear off anymore. I just go to the guilt and shame.
Yeah. You don't push through the fear. Like
I don't try and force it.
These amazing coaches out there, you just need to push through the fear and repetition and torture yourself.
No, I'll never do that, because that can actually have a negative effect on you. Because then what happens is, so a lot of coaches and business coaches and things
push through the fear. I know,
and I've treated people with business blocks. And they've one of my clients, she was having a business coach. And because she wasn't doing what he wanted, he almost berated her. Berated her in. Oh, I'm good. That's good for me. Berated. That's word of the day. Toilet paper was working.
Yeah.
And he almost berated her in front of
the other people. You don't want
berated
toilet paper, mate.
No, I don't. That's quite harsh. No, it's good. So he berated her in front of the other people on the training and made her feel down, because she couldn't do what he wanted to do because she was in fear about it. And once I switched that off, she just did things naturally and her business improved. She didn't do what she was told to. She just did what worked for her. Yeah. And again, that's a big problem. People always try and do what they're told or get advice. But actually, if you switch off your blocks, you just do what works for you, and it will work for you. Yeah. Because you can name anything out there, and everyone has a different idea on how to do it.
Yes.
On how to make it work with action steps. Do this and it'll work. No, do this and it'll work. No, do this and it'll work. That's all worked for them. Every different method has worked for them. The difference is that works for them, and they had no block to doing it. So they just did it. Yeah. You don't know what works for you until you switch off your block. Yeah. Then you'll find what does work for you, and you'll just do it.
Genius. Well said. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, because I see so many people saying that this is a tried and tested method. You need to do this and this and this. And that's exactly the reason why it works for those people. They go, well, I've just spent $5,000 on a course, and this person's got 97 businesses and earning all this money, but I can't do it.
No.
And then they don't do it, and they give up. The sabotage kicks in, and that's because of the blocks and the stuff that gets in the way. That's right. Absolutely. I see it all the time. And I fell into that trap many years ago when I was trying to climb the ladder and be Richard Branson. Because I thought that's what life was all about.
Yeah.
Have no friends, have loads of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Car, be a dick. And,
yeah. And now you've got no friends and no money. No, I'm joking. Yes, no, he's got lots of friends.
Right. And I'm still a dick.
No, he's not.
Enough of that.
No, that is what sabotage things. Yeah. So absolutely. Be mindful of that. You can once you clear your blocks, you'll know what to do. It's just a question of clearing your blocks and then clearing the sabotage and getting out of the way. Yeah. So if you think you're frightened, don't push through the fear, because that will make it worse. Don't get me wrong, there are some people who do push through the fear, but it's only minor fear. It's only small. If your fear is
that's what makes you a man, bruv.
Well, apparently.
Just push through it, you know what I mean? Don't be a blairs.
If it's just a little fear, you can overcome it. And a lot of people do. But if you are crippled with fear, if it's a big fear, you're not going to be able to do that. So that pushing through it, again, only works for some people because it's not huge. And perhaps they also have a really good environment with lots of support around them. And they have friends who can walk them through it or talk and help them out. If you're in an environment where you don't have that, and you've got a crippling fear, well, now you're fucked, because you've got to change the environment and you've got to heal the response you're going through. Once you do that, then things will work out a lot easier. But the environment and then your beliefs are very, very important. Yeah.
Sam Lee, you're back.
You're back. Oh, that's my cousin, Sam. Hey, Sam, I am back. Yeah. I'm back briefly. Yes, I've been back for a couple of weeks. But I've been sorting out some things. But yes, I meant to message you. Nice to see you. And Nia O'Donnell's come on. Hey, Nia. I'm back for a few weeks. Message me and we'll have a catch up. I've been so busy the past few weeks since I've been back, sorting different things out, work-wise and things like that. I haven't had a chance to catch up with everybody. Sam Lee just put a thumbs up. I'll speak to you soon, Sam. So no, the fear, if you're frightened, it's not fear. If you can't switch it off, if you're not able to let it go with the technique you're using, it's because there's guilt and shame under it. It might not be the technique that's wrong. It might
not be a technique. It might be because a lot of people that will be watching this podcast probably aren't even getting help or personal development. No. And they're just sitting there. And the problem is they're going to want all this thing, they have all these desires. I want this, I want to do that, I want to be this, I want to be that. A lot of people I'm working with now are really successful people that haven't got issues. They just know what they want to get in their life.
Yeah.
And they're on their journey getting there, but things keep getting in the way. And all I do is remove the thing that's stopping them. And they're just getting closer and closer and closer to their goal.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with being depressed or anxious or having trauma or PTSD. This is just normal everyday life. So, and then the other thing as well is some people are so frightened of their feelings that as soon as they think of that thing and they have this feeling, and it scares them, and then they just run for the hills because they don't like feeling their feelings.
No,
and then that gets exasperated to being a big problem. But actually, it's probably only something really small. But some people just as soon as you start feeling, shut it down. They've got to live in the logical brain. Feelings, I can't feel. So logical.
That comes down to a couple of things, Jerry. It comes down to being taught that our feelings are bad or our feelings are wrong, or learning that somewhere in your life. One of my friends, she learned through her childhood that having emotions is bad, and so she's tried to stray away from it all the time. So when she goes to heal something, she's so frightened of the emotion that's coming up, it blocks her.
Yeah.
But other people, they've often, like me, for instance, when I didn't like the emotions I was experiencing when I was a teenager, but didn't know how to deal with it. So I went off in search of ways to deal with it, and I found all these different therapies. But when I learned these therapies, I learned that having these emotions is bad, that you shouldn't have them. You should get rid of them because then you're going to get ill and sick. And this actually got stuck in my head. It was playing on a loop. And so I kept trying to do everything to switch these things off and heal myself. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, well, it's bad to have emotion. It's bad. I shouldn't be feeling this way. So that actually gave me a negative belief system. And it wasn't that having emotions or feeling emotions is bad. It's not. It's human. It's hanging on to the emotions for long periods of time.
Or letting those drive your decisions and your behaviours.
Yeah.
Because if you're running those, that's again, it's a sabotage.
Yeah.
And it will drive your decisions and your behaviours, and then you won't act or do the thing you want because of the negative feeling. And that negative feeling or response will drive that behaviour.
Yes.
It will drive a negative behaviour because it's coming from a negative feeling or a negative response.
Yeah.
Now what you're going to do is the thing that you want, you've got a negative response because you're scared of it, and now you're going to completely sabotage going the thing because that's where it's coming from, and then you'll never get to where you want to go.
Which is why I always say to my clients, never make a decision based in an emotional response. Yeah. I went through something very recently, which is why I had to come back from Portugal briefly, that was quite traumatic for me, and I had to resolve the issue. And I could have leapt into my sabotage and run away from the situation completely. I could have leapt into my sabotage and gone, I'm not doing this any longer. I don't want to know.
Yeah. Because
I've done that in the past in these particular situations. And I'm human like everybody else. We all have issues and blocks. And I could have let that affect this particular situation, but I haven't. I've worked through it. Yep. I've come through the other side, and so far the situation is still going ahead, and we're still doing well. But I could have let that stop me. But I made the rule. I very rarely, 95% of the time, will not make a decision, certainly a life-changing decision, based on an emotional response. Because if you do that, it will be wrong. And I've seen it with my clients time and time again. I had one lady come to me.
I'll guarantee that I did that. Yeah, I did that myself.
One lady came to me many years ago before I had DTO, and she came to me with huge anxiety. And she's fine now. And she comments regularly on Facebook saying how much I helped her, and she's lovely. Yeah. So if you're listening, you know who you are. And when she first came to me, she was living in a place. And she said, it's the place that's the problem. She was living in a place, yes. Okay. Stupid. So shut up. I'm trying to educate. I'm trying to be serious. I'm trying to be professional, and you keep interrupting. Like a child. So she was living somewhere
in
her head, she's living in a place. Well, she wasn't living in a cod, was she, or a haddock? She's living in a place.
Yeah.
But her place was dark and dismal, and she thought it was contributing to her anxiety. So her bright idea was to move somewhere else. And I think it was about the third or fourth session in, she said to me, "Oh, I found this lovely place. It's like a communal home, and there's loads of people. It's very light." And I said, "Whoa, please, do not move, because if you don't make this, if you move, you're going to have problems because you're still in that emotional response." She did not listen to me at that moment in time. She moved, and literally within a month, she was back to feeling that it was dark, it was dismal, it was dingy, because that was not a reality.
No, it's the environment's not the issue.
No, in that case, internal stuff. In that case, it wasn't the environment. In that case, it wasn't the environment that's causing the problem, because it's not like there was someone around her hurting her or harming her, although that was one aspect, but they weren't living with her. It was just four walls. Yeah. There was nothing wrong with the four walls. She could have lightened it any way she wanted to. Once we switched all that off, the new place then became lighter, and she's happier living there. And she's so much happier now. Her anxiety's gone. She runs her own business, which she never did before. She took up I was going to say pole
Kung
dancing,
Fu?
not pole dance, maypole dancing, and things like that. And she'll say pole dancing though. So she started doing maypole dancing, and she made friends. So her life has changed in lots of ways. But initially, because she didn't follow that advice to halt and not make a decision based on emotional response, she ended up making what could have been a mistake, but we've changed it and it's okay now. So please, if you're trying to solve a problem, I know that if I hadn't had that rule with myself that I never made a decision based on emotional response, I would have sabotaged the hell out of what's been happening with me recently. Yeah. I would have run away, escaped. Yeah. But I don't want to do that anymore in that particular area of my life. I want to change that. And again, if you want change in your life, you have to change your behaviors and actions.
Change or nothing will change.
Change or nothing will change.
Say it all the time.
So that's why Steve's been helping me out recently with that particular issue, because it was a deep-seated issue and I need to help us resolve it. And that's helped a lot, because that's allowed me to see more clearly. It's allowed me to see more of the truth instead of a fight and flight response, because I was just in fight and flight. Yeah.
Well, basically, you just all of the stuff you'd made up about it. You just made up loads of bollocks, and the problem is that you made up all this bollocks because of the perception of the time of the event. You've made up a load of bollocks. You believe that bollocks now, and now that's your reality. But in reality, it's not your reality. That's
not what's happening. No, that's a false reality. And I had all these fears and all these worries. It literally came down to lots of guilt and shame over it, didn't it? And things that I wasn't finding as well. And although I say DTO, you can use DTO yourself to help a lot of things, and you can. With a deep-seated issue like this, it was difficult for me to find it. So Steve has done a brilliant job in helping me sort of unmess my head on that scenario. So, hopefully now it's all going to move forward in the right direction. Yep. And I'm moving forward to that, and that's great. But I could have sabotaged it. So please don't make a decision based on an emotional response. Yeah. It does not work.
That's why prisons are full of people.
That is the reason. That's true. Yeah. All of their decisions are based. That's why teenagers become young offenders. Yeah. That's why all the crime and that happens in the world, because their decisions and behaviours are driven based on emotional response.
How many times have you done something like that? Oh, I wish I hadn't have done that. I wish I hadn't said that. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly.
I spent my whole life doing that.
Just down to eating chocolate. Just down to that one thing alone. Yeah. People will go, oh, God, I shouldn't have eaten that whole bar. I wish I hadn't done that now. Yeah. Well, that comes back to guilt and shame. You're feeling guilty about it. You're going, oh, I'm going to put on weight. That's shame or guilt kicking in. And if that guilt and shame is there, that will actually cause the guilt and shame will cause you to put on weight, not the chocolate. Very, very important distinction. I know that's going to
people this all the time, but they think I'm mental.
Yeah, it's going to fry people's heads right now. I totally get it. It's completely different what you've been told, that food puts on weight, and it doesn't in the way people think. It's actually the emotional response to food that puts on weight, or another conflict around the stomach and the digestion or weight. Weight's a bit more complicated to work with. But often it's the guilt and shame about what you're eating, or the way you're eating, or the way you're behaving, or what you've been told that causes the problem. Yeah.
And also as well, it's like if you've had traumatic stuff in the past, when you do it, your body will hold on to that stuff. It will hold on and hold on and hold on, and it will just keep holding on to the stuff. It won't let it go.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and so your body actually stores the weight.
It stores the weight rather
than trying to let it go. I remember a few years back, I was storing weight on the top here, just my diaphragm area, and it didn't really feel like weight. It was more fluid. And it was because, and I was causing myself to eat more than my body required. And although I wasn't technically putting on lots of weight, I put on a little bit of weight. But I realized what was happening is that my body was craving more food.
Yeah.
Because there was I was feeling powerless. No, I was feeling powerless, and I couldn't swallow something.
Yeah.
So my body was eating more food. Excuse me. My body was eating more food, trying to swallow the conflict I was going through. And that is why we eat more food than what we want. We either eat more food than we need because we can't swallow something, or we can't digest something.
Yeah.
And so our body then goes, right, we need food to swallow.
From a
we need food to
psychological
digest it.
perspective.
Yeah, it's kind of like a metaphor for the body. And that made me store food. So from our perspective, if your body is storing food, it's because there's something you're not letting go of, or your body's storing it for a reason.
Yeah.
Actually, your body's designed to let go of anything it doesn't need. It's designed in the way to let go of anything it doesn't want. That includes toxins, chemicals, food, everything. That's why we have so many holes in our body. But a lot of people don't understand this. So if you are, straight off the subject slightly, but if you are having weight issues and you're trying the exercise and nutrition, but it's not working, this will be the reason why. It's not what we specialize in, but I have helped some people do it.
Yep.
You know, one of my clients, they when they came to me, she didn't come to me for this, but one of her symptoms was bloating. And one of the positive side effects of it was she lost the bloating. It just vanished. Yeah. She dropped 2 dress sizes overnight. Now, we weren't working on a weight issue. It was just a positive side effect of doing DTO and clearing things out.
Yeah, I've seen that with people as well that I've worked with,
So it often happens that when you Steve lost loads of weight over the time period that we worked with him. He's lost weight in his face, in his stomach. He's lost loads of weight. He's now at the gym.
I'm at the gym,
toning up, but it wasn't the gym that did it. He just lost weight naturally.
Yeah.
He already was eating well. I mean, his diet is brilliant. He doesn't eat junk. He cooks. He's a proper cook, so he knows how to cook proper food. Cook. Well, I mean, you cook. You don't chuck something in a microwave.
No.
You take things from scratch. You chuck it in a frying pan. You make healthy food.
I do like to cook.
So he knows how to cook. He knows how to eat right, but he was still big. And since clearing all his stuff out, he just lost weight naturally. So just bear in mind, if that's a problem for you, then that's where that's coming.
The other thing as well is, while I was running all that, I was drinking a bottle and a half of wine most nights as well, and making out. I say that's a bottle of wine a night. Yeah. Then you realise at the end of the week you drank 6 bottles of wine.
Yeah.
And then but we just normalise that.
But that wasn't.
It's normal, isn't it? I mean, I like a bottle of wine, I like a glass of wine.
Like, I need a glass of wine to relax.
Yeah. But I need a glass of wine to relax. Exactly, yeah.
Really? Can't you just sit there and go? Yeah. But that wasn't again cause. That was a symptom.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people look at that. So you'll go to someone will go to.
I'm drinking too much.
You'll go to the expert, the weight person, or wherever it is, and they'll go, "Well, you drink too much alcohol." Wait a minute, no, that's a symptom.
Yes.
What's causing you to drink the alcohol? Because it's not technically alcohol itself.
Yeah.
What's causing you to do it? Yeah. And you will find that it's some belief system, some habits, some emotional response from the past.
Like for me, it's because I was so in my head, I was so messed up. I just wanted to move away.
Yeah,
it was really funny. I'm going to tell you funny. I bumped into a guy about a year ago outside the supermarket, and he saw me, and obviously he knows what I do now, and that is an old friend, right, from the old days, and a bit of a boy, right. Anyway, so he goes. Oh yeah, he goes. You do all that mental stuff, and he goes, yeah, you're doing all right, and I said, yeah. I said, he goes. He said, do a lot of people get all messed up or whatever he said? I said, yeah. I said, everyone's messed up. He said, I'm not. And he's standing there with 2 bottles of vodka in his hand. He got 2 bottles of vodka in his hand, and he went, no, I'm all right. I know how to deal with my stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, you don't. You know what I mean? That's the complete denial and the complete unawareness that you just normalised that.
Yeah.
You just normalised. Got 2 bottles of vodka in his hand, one in each hand. And he said, no, I'm all right, me. I know how to deal with my shit.
Exactly.
Like, really?
Yeah, I know.
I was like, okay, mate.
Yeah,
great.
It's
so anyway,
people do that. They don't.
They're just even aware. That's a problem. It's like
because you see society all the time that they're drinking, they're gambling, they're doing drugs. It's become a norm because and you go to someone who think who knows like a doctor, and now they say you're addicted.
You see it in TV programs all the time. Something bad will happen, and then they go, and then they pour in a whiskey.
EastEnders, curry. They immediately go for a drink, or they go for a fag.
I need a drink.
Or these days they'll sex. These days they'll be addicted to sex, or they'll be cheating left, right, and centre. That's all driving. That's all an unconscious response that drives behaviour, and it's not the norm. It's become the norm, but it's not who you are. I'm not saying it's wrong or bad. I'm not judging it. I'm saying it is what it is. But if
you wake up to it and see it, then you'll realise that it doesn't work for you.
No, if you're doing it and you don't want to be doing it, or you're spending money doing it and you're not really happy genuinely deep down, it can be changed, because it's not what the cause is. It's just a symptom. All of those things are symptoms. Addictions are symptoms. Yeah. Phobias are symptoms. Illness is a symptom. Depression, anxiety, they're all symptoms.
Everything's symptoms.
Everything is a symptom. You must deal with the root cause. And all we're saying is the root cause is inside. And the two responses that are the worst are guilt and shame.
Yeah.
And you may know what you feel guilty about or something you did in the past, but often the guilt and shame is secret. It's hidden.
Yeah.
It's underneath things and you don't know it. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you a clue. I'll let you find it for yourself. Okay. So think of something something's happened to you.
Made you really angry.
Made you angry or frightened.
Really angry.
So think of a situation where you feel angry or frightened. Now close your eyes. Think about what the anger or fear is. So be specific. So it might be, I'm angry because that person shouldn't have said it. Or I'm frightened because I'm going to get hurt.
I'm angry because that man's not wearing a mask.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Think of the anger or the fear. Put it in your mind and go, right, when I think of that anger or fear, what's the guilt or shame under it? And wait for the answer and just say it to yourself as soon as it pops in your head. Regardless of whether it makes sense, regardless of whether you believe it or you think it's logical, none of that matters, because this is your unconscious. Your conscious brain is logical. Your unconscious is nuts. Yeah. It has no idea.
Emotional brain. It's
emotional. It has no idea about logic. So ask yourself, when I think of that anger or fear, what's the guilt or shame under it? If you can't find it straight away, just go.
It might be an alone response.
It might be a alone response, but there might be a guilt and shame. So ask yourself first. So let's say you're angry because someone said something nasty. So you go, right, when I think about the anger because someone said something nasty, what's under it? A guilt, a shame, or an alone response? And whichever one pops in your head, so one of them will pop in your head. It'll be like guilt. So you go, right, stop. Okay, great. Then you ask your brain, what's the guilt about?
Yeah, what do I feel guilty about?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, a sentence will pop in your head. Give it a second, give it 2 seconds.
Yeah.
The guilt will pop in your head. It may not make sense. It may not seem logical, but that's what's underneath your anger, or at least that's one of them underneath your anger. And that's the way it works. That's literally the question we ask people.
So it's not the anger that's the problem, it's the guilt.
It's the guilt or the shame alone underneath.
That's what we find, and that's what we deal with, and that's the cause, in my understanding, is the cause of almost everything. There's 4 things that cause everything: guilt, shame, an alone response, and beliefs. They're the 4 things that are the cause of everything. And when you find them,
you switch them off.
Problem goes away. Right. So I'm just mindful now. It's 12 minutes past 1 on the live score.
12 minutes past 1?
Yeah, 1 hour, 12 minutes.
Oh, I see. I got you. I thought it was 12 minutes past 1 in the morning. I was like, how long have we been talking?
How long you've been talking?
How long I've been talking?
How long have you been talking? Now you're back here. You're full of beans. You've been full of it tonight.
I love it.
Everything you've been part of has been really, really spot on. And especially some of them has been absolute gems.
Thank you.
So I'm going to get you a badge in a minute.
Oh, do I get a badge?
Podcast 32 badge.
Can it be a chocolate badge?
No, it doesn't. It's a chocolate badge. Right. Okay. So we're going to probably wrap up now, I think. I think that's probably it.
Yes.
I don't want to hear any more of these obscenities on the podcast.
No. Okay.
So we're going to wrap up. I hope you found this podcast of informative.
This podcast of informative. I hope you found this podcast of informative.
You have to excuse me. I'm not in my top form. I am knackered. But anyway, I hope you found the podcast informative, and what Jonathan said through most of this podcast very, very beneficial to you, and that you can start understanding what's really going on when it comes to sabotage and why you can't do the things you do or what's stopping you from doing it.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to say before we move on? Or say cheerio, bye, ta-ta?
Actually, no, if anyone's watching this, I have a question. So leave a comment in the comments below. I'm going to
leave a comment.
You're going to leave a comment. So I'm going to ask a question to people and tell me what you think about this idea. So one of the models that I use, and that me and Steve use to understand why people are stuck with illness and disease, is something called meta health. It's been gone through many, many versions of it, names and things. And I believe people should understand this. It gives us an understanding of why we become ill and diseased, what the conflict is. It's a different model from traditional medicine. And the reason I think we need a different model is because I've been using this for over 15 years. It's not mine, it's somebody else's, and it works. It helps me and Steve resolve illness and disease where traditional medicine couldn't. So I'm thinking about releasing this information to everybody, sharing it with people for free, teaching them the model of how we actually become ill and diseased, how the body actually works. So if people are stuck and they're not healing, they can understand where it comes from. So if you're doing all traditional things, you're doing all the alternative things, you're doing all holistic things, and it's still not working, you can actually start to understand why and then what you need to do about it. But I want to know if people want to know that information. Are you curious? Or do you just want to carry on listening to the traditional model,
watching
not
the
getting
news
anywhere,
and going to the doctor?
Yeah, do you want to carry on going to the doctor and listening to that and not getting any better? Or do you want a new understanding? Because if you want to solve your illness and disease, then you need a new model. You need to understand it differently. I did with depression when I suffered that. I did with chronic pain because I was training chronic pain originally. So when I had my shoulder problem, I needed a new understanding. And this is what gave me the understanding. I learned very quickly because once I understood this, it took me 20 minutes to switch my shoulder pain off. Yeah. So understanding this was part of what helped me get better. And it was a major part in the last 15 years, which has helped me get people better from all sorts of problems because I looked at it with this model. I'm not saying which model is right or correct. I'm saying this works really well. Yeah. So let's do what works.
I just want to point out, I had 3 spine. I say this all the time. Sometimes I've mentioned this on this podcast. I had 3 spine ops, right? And over a period of time, I was having a spine operation going wrong, spine operation going wrong, spine operation going wrong. Worked with you, right? They told me I couldn't do anything, and I had to not lift anything. I had to protect it.
Yeah.
Did that for 10 years. I was always in pain. I then come see you.
Yeah.
And within probably 6 months, I'm now in the gym, pushing some serious weights, and I've got no back problem based on his model. On the old model, I'd had 3 operations and I was in pain pretty much constantly, and my leg was numb.
So it works.
There's evidence for you if you're looking for evidence.
Yeah, it works really well. It helped me solve it's not my model. I did not create it, but I think it's helped me help so many people, and I think people should know a different model. I think perhaps the model should be out there and it should be available for people to look up. But I want to know if people are interested in it. Would you like to learn a new model and a new understanding of why we have illness and disease? Are you open to look at that? Because if not, that's okay. I'll share it with my clients. I'll keep it to myself and my colleagues. You know it, obviously. Yeah. But I think the world right now needs a new understanding. I think if we continue with the way we view health and disease right now, it will just get worse. And it is getting worse. Illness and disease is not getting better. But think about it. It's the model that's broken. It's not human beings. It's the understanding that's the problem. You wouldn't be cleaning your dishes and someone comes along and says, we've got a machine that can do that faster. And you go, no, that's all right, thanks. I'm happy by hand. You use the dishwasher. That may not be a great analogy because maybe doing it by hand is healthier for you. But that's the point.
There's something that, I mean, you want something that's not working to something that sort of does work. I mean, that's like pretty straightforward, really.
The traditional model doesn't generally work. If it does work for you, great. But I see a lot of people where it hasn't worked. And usually when the traditional model's working, you're just coping and maintaining the problem. Yeah. My belief is that nobody should be ill. No one should have disease. I've never believed in this model. It's shit. It's a daft model. We're not born like it. We shouldn't have it. And I believe one day that the world will be healed and we won't have illness and disease and it'll be a thing of the past. Yeah. And I think this model, it may not be the complete answer, but this model has helped me get people better when other things couldn't, when traditional alternative holistic therapy were not working. It helped me get better. It helped Steve get better and a lot of my clients. Yeah. So leave a comment below. If you're watching this later on or you see it, leave a comment and let me know if you're interested in this. There's not going to be a channel to it. I'm going to set a website up and it'll be all on the website. And I'll post videos weekly, but I want to know if people are interested.
Yeah. Okay, great, cool. So I think that's really good. I mean, I've learned it and it works for me and it works for my clients. And I think it's a model that everyone should know and learn and understand, and then things will change for the better. Yeah. So, so if you want to reach out to Jonathan, if you've got any issues with pain or any depression issues, PTSD, anything really, to be honest, because you do everything, don't you? Reach out to Jonathan on the dtosystem.com and or the inside-out effect, inside-out effect.co.uk. where you can find myself and Jonathan if you want to work with us. And if not, you can reach me on healingthemind.co.uk or message us through the Facebook group channel, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So other than that, I think we're going to sign off now. Thank you for joining us. I hope you, like I said earlier on, I hope you find the podcast informative, and it's I brought something up for you which will allow you to identify what's not working for you and gives you the opportunity to take action and find out or know that there's a resolution or a solution to your problem. Yeah. Other than that, I think we'll see you on the next episode of the Inside Out podcast. I'm Stephen Jakes. This is my good friend Jonathan Shaw. I'm going to say ta-da. And Jonathan.
Good night, everyone. Have a great weekend.
All the best. Ta-da. Bye.